Fox News alert. India firing missiles into Pakistani-controlled territory overnight, reportedly killing at least 26 people in what Pakistani leaders are calling an act of war.
That's right, and the stakes could not be higher as both India and Pakistan have nuclear weapons. Lucas Tomlinson joins us now with more. Lucas.
Well, good early morning, Carly and Griff. The Indian government says it launched airstrikes against terrorist camps in Pakistan in retaliation for a terrorist attack in Kashmir 2 weeks ago that killed dozens of civilians, one of the deadliest massacres in decades. In a briefing to reporters, Indian officials say 9 targets were hit in Pakistan and on the Pakistani side of the disputed Kashmir region. Here's President Trump after learning about those strikes.
It's a shame. We just heard about it just as we were walking in the doors of the Oval. Just heard about it. I guess people knew something was going to happen based on a little bit of the past. They've been fighting for a long time. You know, they've been fighting for many, many decades and centuries, actually, if you really think about it. No, I just hope it ends very quickly.
Now, the dispute over Kashmir dates back to 1947, following the partition of British India into India and Pakistan. Both countries claim the entire Himalayan region. For decades, the area has been contested. The strikes overnight marked the deadliest encounter between nuclear-armed nations in over 5 years. At least 2 Indian fighter jets were reportedly gone down. Pakistan claims to have shot them down. Both India and Pakistan are bitter enemies and have fought several wars, the last one back in 1999. The Trump administration is urging both sides to de-escalate the tension. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said in a statement, quote, "I am monitoring the situation between India and Pakistan closely. I echo the president's comments earlier today that this hopefully ends quickly and will continue to engage both India and Pakistani leadership toward a peaceful resolution." And Pakistan has denied involvement in the terrorist attacks and said it would respond to the Indian airstrikes at a time and place of its own choosing. Griff, Carly.
Lucas Tomlinson live for us. Lucas, thank you so much. Let's bring in Chief Editor of the Middle East Forum, Jim Hanson. Jim, good morning to you. You know, we're talking about an escalation in conflict between 2 nuclear-armed countries. How should we view this development and what happens next?
Yeah, there's no upside to any of this. This is not the first time that Pakistani terrorists inside of India. The Mumbai attacks were done by apparently one of the same groups that was involved with this. And India holds the Pakistani government responsible for the fact that those groups are allowed to operate and, you know, have safe haven in their country. So the idea that they would attack what was a camp they say was one of the ones involved in this is not surprising. What remains to be seen is how badly Pakistan feels they need to go ahead and retaliate, and will that escalate things into open conflict?
Jim, this sort of took everyone by surprise, obviously, that follow global events here in the U.S. And now, as you point out, we have 2 nuclear-armed countries with a long history of war. How concerned are you that this escalates?
You know, these guys have been butting heads for, if you look at the Hindus and Muslims fighting in that area for thousands of years, but if you look at just the India and Pakistan since 1947. So they have an ongoing dispute over Kashmir, the entire region. One of the more interesting things, they have a border crossing there where every day the 2 countries have their militaries dress up and they have essentially a dance off. They have a conflict of parade, where there are bleachers on both sides. The tourists come and watch. This is a kind of a low simmering boil at all times. Now the fact that there was a terrorist attack killing, dozens of tourists in India, and now the retaliation inside of Pakistan, that could definitely reach a much higher boil if this doesn't, stop soon.
Well, if this does escalate, we have good relations with India mixed with Pakistan. What does U.S. involvement look like?
You know, there's been a shift over the past few years where Pakistan has begun aligning more tightly with China, and India has been aligning more tightly with the United States, both in the military hardware they buy and in overall relations. India is one of the countries that President Trump is most likely to make a trade deal with in the near future. So I think we have a large amount of if not influence, at least connectivity with India and less with Pakistan. We've been removing ourselves from them. So hopefully we can, convince the Indians that this does not need to turn into another war. We've got a land war in Europe that's been going on for 3 years. The Middle East is still on fire. We do not need the two large countries there with nuclear weapons turning this into even a more dangerous situation.
Jim, let me just lastly work in here. How does China or Russia factor into this incident?
Russia used to supply a lot of military equipment to India, and that's been less over the passing years. And as I mentioned, China has become more tightly aligned with Pakistan. We used to have a very, a tight relationship with Pakistan. It was never good. We never had a trusted relationship with them because they have so many terrorist groups that operate in their territories. They had bin Laden hidden there for years and years. So we've moved away from that as we moved away from Afghanistan. So I think there is the element of a U.S. and China behind the scenes on this, both probably talking to the respective countries. And the hope is that we can at least say this does not need to become a larger war. And it's certainly no one wants this to go to the highest level, and have the nuclear genie out of the bottle.
Jim Hanson, thank you so much for joining us with your analysis on this. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Jim.